then I'll start my introduction again. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our Nature Connection Lunch and Learn. We are really excited this week to be learning all about honeybees, which is another great way to bring more nature and things into your backyard and connect us with nature. I have to admit, I tried beekeeping for a while. I was really bad at it, but it was really cool, all the things you were learning and all the things about the bees. And I was fascinated by them. I just wasn't very good at taking care of them. They all tended to just die on me. But we have a much better beekeeper here who will go over a lot of the great stuff about keeping bees at home. Couple of quick things. Just a reminder, the grounds at Bucks Audubon are open dawn to dusk every day. This is a fabulous time of year to come out and take a walk and enjoy the property. It's just really a lovely, lovely place. And definitely check out upcoming programs. I know we've got a wildflower walk happening in May. We're going to be doing our forest bathing is going to be happening every fourth Saturday throughout through the summer and fall. So if you've done our forest bathing and want to keep doing it, which is great for your relaxation, definitely sign up for those programs. They're wonderful. We also have our Raptor Run coming up on June 2nd. So if you want to get out, come run our trails. It's a really, really nice, it's a Wednesday evening. Great opportunity to come out, run or walk the trails, have a little socially get together afterwards. It'll be great. If you're not ready to come out yet, we are also offering a virtual option for that. So you can run a 5K at some point, either in your neighborhood or on your treadmill or however you want to do it, and still get some of our fun swag from that. So definitely check that out. We are also on Saturday, May the 15th, doing a birdathon. So 24 hours of birding. There are several different categories you can do it in. You can, hit multiple spots throughout Bucks County. You can just focus on upper Bucks or lower Bucks. We sort of split Central in half, so you can look at the specific townships on the website. We have one for if you want to just do it in your backyard. So if you just have a great backyard and want to just bird in your backyard all day and make a list, that would be great too. We also have a category for new birders. So if you've been birding for less than 2 years, and one for young birders, so under the age of 18. So if you want to do it with your kids or grandkids, it's a really, really fun program. So there's more information on the website. I'll post the link in a little bit once James gets started, if anyone's interested. So lots of great stuff coming up. And again, as I said, beautiful out right now. So come out and enjoy the property. So I am now going to turn it over. James Romanchek is a beekeeper with the local Philadelphia Beekeeping Guild and has graciously agreed to do our presentation today. So I'm excited to see what he brings up. Next week, I forgot to tell you what next week was. Next week, Bob McGarry will be with us talking about Climate Watch, which is the National Audubon Society Citizen Science Program. So we're really excited to hear about that because that Citizen Science Program is coming up. It starts May 15th through June 15th, and I know he's still looking for some volunteers as well. So that'll be a great program to learn about next week. So now I'm going to turn it over to James and let him take it away.
Hello, everybody. Hold on one second. All right, let me turn this back on. There we go. Hello, everyone. My name is James. I'm the son of one of your members somewhere. Yeah, I actually grew up in Bucks County. I grew up in Langhorne, and been all around the country. Came back here a while ago, settled down in Philadelphia, and I've been keeping bees for, I think I'm on my 8th year of my own bees. I got interested in it in college. I had a couple professors who had bees. He was this crazy German guy. He had this thick German accent, and he would always talk about the bees and the Weckeldance. And he had a bunch of hives up on the roof of the bio building and was always looking for volunteers to help with, stretching his grants as far as he could. But he got me interested in beekeeping and, taught me the basics. And it's great. It's fantastic. Stacey, I'm sorry that all of your bees die. That's a very common thing to happen right now. being a beekeeper at this moment in time is rather challenging, just because of all of the problems, all the threats that are going on right now. But I mean, it takes work and some dedication, but you can do it. And there's a fantastic community. So I'm a member of the Philadelphia Beekeepers Guild. We are the club for Philadelphia. In Pennsylvania, almost every county has a club, and they have an organization for, they support everybody, and then they send members to the state organization. It's a whole thing, and it's crazy. There is a club in Bucks County. I'm not gonna lie, we don't really interact with them a lot. We're very close with the Montgomery County beekeepers and the Chester County beekeepers, and there's no Delaware County beekeepers, so they all either come to us or Chester or Montgomery. But despite everything that we always kind of reach out to the Bucks County people, and we never seem to be able to connect. So, but go check them out if you're interested. They should have lots of resources to help you out. Or come to the Philly Guild because we're awesome. So okay, anyhow, with that, I will start this presentation. Maybe. I guess I gotta hold on. I gotta do this, and then I gotta share my screen. Is that good? Everybody see it? Okay. This is a little presentation we like to give. It's called the ABCs of bees and beekeeping. Something you should all know is that is the moment you decide to get bees, for some reason, your love of dad jokes and puns grows exponentially. I can't explain it. It's just a fact. So factor that in. If you're already at a pretty high level, then you'll fit right in. Anyhow, the ABCs of bees and beekeeping. So why keep bees? Well, there's lots of different reasons that people decide to keep bees, and your reasons will basically determine what you do and your approach. These are some common reasons. People want to get the products of the hive. The honey is, there's any bee hive will give you more honey than you know what to do with, but you can also get wax. You can also get propolis. Propolis is this sort of it's a material that they make out of sap, and they stick it to everything. And it has some crazy properties, including, it's sticky, but including like antimicrobial qualities. You can take the honey and ferment it and turn it into mead, which is what I do. It's fantastic. Apitherapy is, the idea of you get yourself stung a whole lot, and it supposedly helps you with a lot of ailments that you may have. I personally don't like being stung, so I've never tried it. Other people swear by it. It's a great hobby. It's fun. It's fascinating. It's rewarding. And it's one of these hobbies that can turn into a business. We even have commercial beekeepers in Philadelphia. We have several people who make their living selling honey, and it's great. Environmental stewardship, lots of people get into bees for environmental stewardship because, everybody hears about the bees and they're getting in trouble. And they are the pollinating powerhouses of the area. So if you want your trees to be pollinated and your bushes and your flowers and your, some of your crops, then, get some bees. And, there's many other reasons too, but, almost everybody starts somewhere, and it changes after time sometimes, but wherever you start, that sort of figures out where you go. So before you actually dive into this, you do want to start checking, check out some stuff. A lot of places have ordinances either against beekeeping or limiting it. Guess what? City of Philadelphia has nothing, much like everything else. So you can keep 1,000 hives in your backyard in Philadelphia if you think you can manage it. The one thing that we have a problem with is that since everybody lives in a row home, neighbor relations becomes very important. And it might not apply if you have a very large, many-acre property. But my hives back right up against two of my neighbors. Actually, I guess three of my neighbors. So a little bit of honey helps with that a lot. You want to make sure that you have a good place for them. Bees need a water source and they need sun. They don't need 100% sun all the time, but they need some sun. And so if your entire yard is shaded and there's no water anywhere, you're either going to have to give them water or you're going to have to find a different place for them. Natural barriers helps a lot. When bees come out of the hive, if they hit something, not literally, but if they see something, then they'll go up and they'll start flying above your level, and then they won't run into people and dogs and lawnmowers. So all these things are where you want to consider for if you want to get bees. Rooftops work great. It's a very city thing. I know many people who have rooftop apiaries. I know a couple commercial beekeepers who they basically have the entire rooftops of old warehouses that are they have hundreds of hives up there. It's great. Anyhow, some other places, community gardens, some places have co-op apiaries. We have an apiary in Germantown that we lease space to basically people who need it. So, situations like that are great. All right. So basic bee behavior. It is helpful to think of your beehive not as a whole bunch of individual bees, but as a superorganism. This is a fun little term that was coined. But it's great to think of it that way because the hive itself basically acts as the organism. So the hive maintains its core temperature around 91 degrees Fahrenheit. That includes in the middle of winter. It drops a little bit. It's like 89 degrees. The colony reacts to its environment. An individual bee may react to you, but an individual bee really won't bother you unless they start a colony response. The colony itself looks around for nutrition. When it finds nutrition, it tells the rest of, when an individual bee finds the rest of the nutrition, then it comes back and all the rest of the bees go out for it. They share food, they share resources, it's all together. The colony is intelligent and it's adaptable. It adapts to a situation. So if you come to your hive one day and it's really aggressive at you for no reason, that means it's responding to something else that was there. So maybe a skunk decided to get into it, or something else. Wouldn't be a bear, because if a bear gets into your hive, then you don't have a hive anymore. But it's things like that. It's not the individual bees that are doing stuff. It's the whole colony. Anyhow, individual members, they will sacrifice themselves for the good of the colony, but no individual in the colony can survive without the colony. It leads to some neat things, like if I have a couple bees who tag home with me in the car, if I open up my car door, the bees will fly out. They'll actually be fine because they'll go find another colony and just invite themselves in. And the colony will be like, yeah, you're cool. You can come on in, right? However, if it's not one bee, if it's a whole bunch of bees, then those whole bunch of bees act as sort of like a warring party, and they'll go in and they'll try and like rob out the other one. It's different responses based on if it's a group acting collectively or just one or two individuals. It's really cool. And it's a little bit crazy. So you all remember elementary school, I'm sure. Within a honeybee colony, there's 3 castes of bees. There's the worker, there's the drone, there's the queen. This is what they look like. You might think they all look the same. I've been doing this a long time. They look very different to me. The workers, that's the one on the top there. They're all female and they do everything. They do all the work, 100% of the work aside from laying eggs. They collect pollen, they collect nectar, they clean the hive, they feed the hive, they defend the hive, they nurse the babies, they do everything. Honeybees have it's a barbed stinger. So a honeybee can only ever sting you once. After it stings you, it dies. This also means that they don't really want to sting you. Honeybees typically, the stinging is sort of a last resort. And they'll only sting you if you squish them or if you're trying to steal all of their honey. So when you see bees out in the field, don't squish them and they'll be fine. You can actually pet them. I actually petted a bee today. My daughter was very impressed when I walked up to a bee on a flower and petted her. But anyhow, so what's neat about the workers is that in the summer, they really only live about 4 to 6 weeks. And at the end of their life is when they go out and start foraging. So all the bees you see on the flowers, they've been around for about 6 weeks and they're kind of on their last legs. However, these same honeybees in the winter, they live 3 to 4 months. That's crazy because the hive will actually kind of switch their way of raising the workers to turn them into what we call winter bees. It's another way that you can see how like the hive is an organism, not the individuals, which it's crazy. But anyhow, so drones, these are drones are the second picture there. They are a bit bigger than workers. They have big rounds and they have giant eyes that look like a football helmet. Drones are the males. They live only to mate with queens. They don't have a stinger, and they really do nothing. It's actually kind of great. They just live in the hive and they get fed by the workers and they get cared for by the workers and they do absolutely nothing. The downside is that they'll fly out and they'll find a queen and they'll mate with her, and as soon as they do that, they die. So, I mean, it's a short life, but it's not too bad, I guess. The other downside is that since they really do nothing and they don't contribute at all, whenever the hive is in trouble, the first thing they do is they push out all the drones and they leave them outside to die. And they do that every winter because why would they need drones in the winter? They're there just to kind of get through the winter. So, it's a nice life, but it has its drawbacks, I guess. Anyhow, so the last one is the queen. The queen is, that's the bottom picture there. She's gigantic. She's twice the size of a worker. Despite that, she's sometimes very hard to spot in a hive, especially when you absolutely need to find her because you're looking for her. All the queen does is lay eggs. She can lay up to 2,000 eggs a day if she has room and if there's stores and honey coming in. She has a barbless sting that she can sting you multiple times, but I've never heard of a beekeeper getting stung. She uses that to kill rival queens. And the queen bee, it's rare, but they can live up to 5 years. They typically live 2 to 3 years, but they can live up to 5 years, which, it's kind of crazy considering. Anyhow, the queen also produces the hive itself. There used to be a slide in this presentation called pheromones, but it's kind of high level. But one of the ways the hives communicate with each other is through different pheromones, which are chemical odors in the air. The queen actually produces a couple of these herself directly. There's other pieces of the hive that produce others, but it's very interesting that this one bee produces these sort of chemical signatures so that if she's there, the hive's happy, and if she's not there, the hive is not happy. So you can kind of tell right away if you have a queen or not. Sometimes, not always. Why can't I move my slides? There we go. This is the life cycle of a worker bee. They start as eggs, fertilized eggs, for the first 3 days. Then they're a little larva. The little larvae kind of look like little white worms. Then they pupate. Once they pupate, the workers put a wax cap over it, over their cell, so that they transform into the adult. And they pop out as an adult after 21 days. It's exactly 21 days. It's fantastic. Exactly 3 weeks. What a great system, right? So then once the adults are out, when an adult worker first emerges, she actually can't fly and she can't sting. So she basically stays in the hive and she does everything in the hive. So we call those nurse bees, but they do nursing, they do cleaning, they do food handling, they do a lot of activities. They groom the queen. And then somewhere in her life, this says day 1 to 22, but that's very rough, because depending on the needs of the hive, that number can change. Eventually, the worker bees start being able to fly and being able to sting, and then they move on to guard duty and foraging duty. So again, when you see the bees on the flowers, those are bees that have been living for 3-4 weeks at that point and are now out and are kind of on their last legs. One of the things that we always like to point out is, again, thinking of the hive as an organism. When a hive wants to reproduce, it basically splits itself in half and produces a swarm. Right now, it's swarming season. We have a Facebook page, and if you look on our Facebook page, like every day right now, somebody's coming up with a swarm. Swarms are awesome. They are gigantic and they are scary, but guess what? They're perfectly fine. When bees are in swarming mode, basically what happens is the old queen and about 50% of the workers and about 50% of the honey, they basically go out to find a new home. Since this group of bees has nothing to protect, it doesn't have a hive, it doesn't have wax, it doesn't have babies to protect, they're like the nicest, sweetest, most docile bees in the entire world. As a beekeeper, if you look at this picture, the first thing they do is fly up into the air and then they settle somewhere into a giant ball. In the middle of that ball is the queen bee. If you're, as a beekeeper, if you see that, you can literally just move them out of the way, find the queen, put the queen in a cage, put the cage in a hive, and then all those bees will be like, oh, where's the queen? Oh, she's in that hive. And they'll all fly into the hive, and then you have a new hive. Anyhow, so the old queen and the bees leave. They leave their old hive, and then in the old hive, they raise a new queen. So your old hive has a new queen, and your old queen flies off and starts a new hive, and poof, you have 2 hives. Anyhow, swarming season is now, and it goes until about end of May, early June. So, if you guys want to get into beekeeping and you want to get some free bees, now's the time to do it. Just have to catch a swarm. It's a very cool thing to see. This is some other pictures of swarms. This is a bunch of pictures from my friend Adam. He was a beekeeper in Fairmount in Philadelphia. He decided to go catch a swarm. He put the swarm in a box in his car and drove off. Little did he know that the queen had actually escaped, landed on his window, and worked her way down the window and into the door. So when the queen did that, the rest of the bees who were in the box in his trunk decided, oh, well, we should follow that queen. And so as he's driving down, you can see that's Fairmount. I'm sorry, that's the art museum in the background there. As he's driving down the boulevard or the parkway, all of the bees come out of the hive and land on his door and decide to go down into his door. The only, he had to go to a mechanic to get his door pulled off, to get his door pulled apart. And when they did that, they found the bees were actually building comb in his door. They had decided his door was a place to live and they were setting up a hive. So yeah, that was fun. Great story. Anyhow, beekeeping. Is it for me? What am I getting myself into if I decide to be a beekeeper? Well, the friends and family will probably think you're crazy. You can verify that with my father. There is a definite time commitment. It's both time commitment in terms of like what you're doing in any given day, and also a commitment over the course of the year, because at different times of the year you have to do different things. There's a financial commitment. I always like to say that beekeeping is kind of like golf, in that you have this sort of upfront cost you have to pay to get into it. But then after that, it's relatively cheap, although there's, you have to pay to go out on the courses and all that stuff. It's also like golf because there is always the newest gadget that is guaranteed that your ball will go, 100 yards further, or that your bees will live 100 times longer. And so if you want, you can buy that. Sometimes they even work. Sometimes they don't. But anyhow, you are thinking about a financial commitment. We like to say that if you're going to start 2 hives, which is what we would recommend, you're going to start off by paying about $1,000, but you can do it a lot cheaper. You can make your own woodware. You can go find a swarm. Swarms are free. So it does vary, but you are going to spend some money up front. You almost always end up in the role that I'm in that you're an educator and an activist for honeybees. Everybody wants to know about them. And once you get to where you've been doing this a while and you can talk about it, you're going to be asked to come and do, little noon lunches for the Audubon Society in Bucks County. But it's fine. It's great. Everybody will want your honey. I sell my honey all over Manayunk and Roxborough now, and as soon as anybody gets it, I can't keep it. Raw honey is just amazing, and it's different every year, and it's different every season. Anyhow, you may develop full-blown bee fever like this guy. That's what I like this one. And you will get stung. This is a picture of my hands. I got stung on the left. I didn't get stung on the right. This is a picture from last year. So I'll take off that because that's a terrible picture. But I was working a hive. I have my veil on. And all of a sudden I hear buzz, and then I get a sting on my eye. And I think, well, this isn't good. I have my veil on, and I look down, and there's a hole here in my veil, and there's 7 or 8 bees all lined up. And as soon as they saw me, I felt 4 of them, and then I stopped being able to feel them. So that happens, and it's I moved on. I went to work the next day. So beekeeping nowadays is as much about pest control as it is about keeping bees. This was not always the case. What you see here is a varroa mite. Their scientific name is actually Varroa destructor. I'm not even kidding, and it's an appropriate name. Back in Varroa made its appearance in this country in the 90s. Before the 90s, and I don't know this because I wasn't beekeeping before the 90s. Before the 90s, anybody could keep bees. It was the easiest thing in the world. 99% of your hives survived the winter, and everything was happy. Since these little guys have come on the scene, they are everywhere. Every hive will get them. And honestly, if you don't do something about them, they will kill your hive. Stacey, your hives probably died because of varroa mites. Honestly, now, beekeeping losses going into the winter versus coming out of the winter are like, if you can achieve 50%, you can achieve above 50%, you're doing a good job. I tend to hover right around 50%, 50 to 60. But if you think about it, I like to tell people beekeeping is an industry in many cases. And if you had a cattle farm and every year half of your cattle died, how are you supposed to get ahead. I don't know. It's tough. But honeybees are considered livestock. Your hives have to be registered with Pennsylvania, and you can't, I mean, you really can't just let them go. They'll get infested, they'll die from mites. And then what'll happen is, as your hive is dying out, all of those diseases are going to spread to all the other beekeepers or all your other hives. That was a problem for me the first couple times that I was trying this out in Philadelphia, because there are so many beekeepers in Philadelphia, and so many of them just have 1 or 2 hives in their backyard. They may or may not be any good. They may or may not pay any attention to them. But what's kept happening is my bees would be incredibly healthy, incredibly great. They'd be fantastic. My neighbor's bees would be dying. My bees would go rob them out and bring all the diseases back to my hive, which would then die. And that still happens. So now you used to only really have to worry about this kind of stuff in August and September. Now, starting in August, I basically am in there every day until they close up for the winter. Not every day, every week until they close up for the winter, treating for diseases, making sure that they're healthy. Because one week they could be great, and the next week they could be overrun by mites, because again, we found a neighbor who wasn't doing their job. So beekeeping now is as much about mite control and pest control as it is keeping your bees, which honestly, that turns off a lot of people. I mean, I want to raise bees. I don't want to raise mites, but here we are. So that begs, are bees in trouble? I know you've heard a lot about this in the media, in the news. From a very scientific, strictly standpoint, honeybees are not in trouble. They are doing great. There's more of them now today than there were when mites came on the scene, or when neonicotinoids, which is this pesticide that lots of people blame for honeybee crashes, before they were introduced in the 90s. However, native bees are in trouble, probably because of these things. And keeping honeybees is a lot harder than it used to be. So if you want to help bees, plant pollinator gardens, plant trees. That's what they love to eat. They provide the best sources of nectar and pollen. If you want to help the bees, don't just spray everything you have with pesticides. So since we are all beekeepers registered with the state, whenever a local county or municipality sprays for insects, we get a call that says, hey, they're spraying here in this area that's in your area, and we can lock our bees up essentially for a couple of days while they do it. But that's for when the city of Philadelphia sprays for mosquitoes, right? It's not for when my neighbor sprays for mosquitoes. If you spray in the daytime, you're going to hit bees and you're going to kill them. So, best thing to do is reduce those chemicals, or, use them at night. There aren't any bees that are active at night. Anyhow, keeping bees is a great thing to do, but don't do it just to save the bees. That's in here because honestly, everybody in Philadelphia, that's the first question we got. I want to keep bees to save the bees. Well, okay, but how are you going to keep the bees, and are you going to be helping or getting hurt? So there's better ways to do it. So if you want to keep bees, this is about hive frames, equipment, spaces, and the different kinds of bees. This is what a Langstroth hive looks like. This is the most common hive. This is the hive that you see everywhere. You can see the diagram on the right. It's got various parts, and the bees essentially live in what's called the brood chamber, and then they make honey in all the honey supers above it. What's great about this hive is that it's standard. Anybody can get it, anybody can buy it, and it's expandable. So you get more bees, you add more boxes. The thing grows vertically. It's great. And it's interchangeable and it's inexpensive. So, it's fantastic. It's what almost everybody uses. There's other kinds of hives too, but this is just the standard. And it's great for honey production. So if you want honey, this is the one to use. This is a frame. All of the Langstroth hives and a bunch of the other hives use what's called a frame. Basically, it's, this flat piece of wood. You put honeycomb off of it, and the bees build off of it so that you can lift them up, look at them, inspect them, and remove them as necessary. If you don't do that, this is what the bees do. They just build comb wherever, they attach it to whatever, and there's no way for you to look at this and see if they're doing well. If you Google this picture, you'll see a lot of shenanigans about this picture. Basically, some beekeepers, they gave them a heart-shaped foundation, and then the bees build off of it, and then they tried to pass it off as like, oh, this is what the bees do. But so that shenanigans aside, if you don't use frames, you get something like this, a mishmash of whatever. It's not going to be shaped like a heart, but it's gonna look like this. So I like this picture because it's very informative. But for you tech savvy people, don't reverse Google it because you'll just get lots of crazy stuff. You also need veils, or you need at least a veil. I wear a jacket. People wear a full suit. Depends on your comfort level. You should get a smoker. You should get some hive tools. And then there's a whole bunch of other gadgets that you can get: gloves, brushes, whatever. They make suits in kid sizes as well as adult sizes, as well as extra large sizes. So even I don't know. It's great to have kids in suits, even if they're not going to be keeping the bees, just so that they can see everything. Where can you put them? Sunny location, well drained. You need to be protected from the wind. When you're in the city, it's great to be out of sight. You could say, rooftops are great. There's the rooftop is up there, and the bottom picture is actually our guild apiary, which is over in Germantown. You can see the mishmash of different equipment that these people are wearing. I generally wear, let's see the guys on the right, in fact, one of those might be me. Jackets and shorts. I generally don't wear sandals. I really don't like stepping on bees or getting stung on my foot, because then your foot can't fit in a shoe. But I don't mind getting stung on my legs. Versus the full jackets on the left, they're ready for anything. Nothing's getting in there. So anyhow, you need to make sure you have a place to keep bees. And then, how do you get them? Well, bees come in packages. That's what we see in this picture. It's a giant box that consists of 3 pounds of bees and a queen and some food. So you can get those. You can get those in the mail. Or you can go to your local farmer who sent a truck down to Georgia, filled up his truck with these packages, and came back up and is selling them. You can also buy a nuke, which is short for a nucleus hive. A nuke is a fully functional hive that only has 4 or 5 frames. And what you do is you take that little hive and you put it into a big hive, and then you have a big hive. You can also buy hives off of people, but always, be careful, because when you buy a hive off of an old beekeeper, you're getting all of his old diseases as well. And again, like I said, catch a swarm. Right now is swarm season. This is time to do it. I wouldn't do a bee removal, but some people do it. It's kind of for, the more advanced. But anyhow, we keep a list of everybody who's selling nukes and selling packages, and we keep a Facebook list that has all the swarms. So if you need bees, that's where you go. Final thoughts. If you want to be a beekeeper, you just kind of have to figure out what kind of beekeeper you want to be, and that decision is going to guide the rest of your decisions. That's the end of my presentation. the rest of this is a little bit of you know, whatever media hype. We do a honey fest every year. These are last year's dates. We're hopefully going to do it this year, even with COVID. It's always the weekend after Labor Day. We have it at 3 different locations, one of which is Glen Fjord, which is in Northeast Philadelphia, but might as well be in Croydon because it's right there. It's a giant festival. You guys should come out and see it. It's a lot of fun for the whole family. Assuming that we have it this year. We also do it at Wick House, which is in Germantown, and Bartram's Garden, which is down in Southwest Philly, which is a great garden if you guys have never been there. A lot of people don't know about Bartram's, but if you don't, you should check it out. There's a lot of websites that we can help you with. You can always log on to our website, Philadelphia Beekeepers Guild, to check us out. And the only other thing I want to show you is honey, because why would you not keep bees, or why would you keep bees and not get the honey? Even one hive will get you 30 pounds of honey easy. A lot of beekeepers get into beekeeping for the bees and they get out of it because they just have so much honey and they don't know what to do with it. So it's truly extraordinary how much honey a single hive can make. The thing is, honey is also really heavy. So a box full of honey, just a medium, so boxes come in different sizes, but most people use medium. So a medium-sized box that's full of honey will have 30 pounds of honey and the box will weigh 10 pounds. So if you can't reliably lift 40 pounds, then you need to get a smaller size box. But even a decent hive will fill 2 of those easy. They'll fill more. So you can make a whole bunch of different kinds of honey products with it. Crush and strain is the easiest. You just chop it out, crush it, strain it, and you get honey. And then if you want to go full blown, you buy a centrifuge extractor, you put it in there, you cut the wax off, put it in there, you spin it around, and you get this delicious honey that just drains out the bottom and you put right in jars. A lot of bee groups will have one of these for their members to use. We do. Otherwise, you guys shell out money for your own. So that's it. That's my thing, and I'm happy to field any and all questions right now, if you want.
Great. Thank you so much, James. There are a couple questions in the chat.
In the chat.
The first question was, how does the colony grow a new bee?
A new queen? Is that what you mean?
Queen. I'm sorry. Yes.
So the way this works is actually amazing, because so when a queen lays an egg, she actually determines if it's going to be male or female. So a queen can lay a female egg or a male. Female eggs become workers primarily, or they'll become a queen. So the way the colony does this is, for the first 3 days, everything's an egg. At that point, once the egg hatches, for the first 3 days, every single larva is fed a diet of what's called royal jelly, which is a very nutrient-rich food that the larva eats. After those 3 days, the colony decides whether or not that bee is going to become a worker or a queen. If that bee is going to become a worker, they cut off her royal jelly and they start feeding her this thing called worker jelly, which is the same kind of food. It's just less nutrient rich. At that point, there's no going back. That bee will become a worker bee. If they want that bee to become a queen bee, they'll continue to feed her royal jelly and they'll move her into a really big cell, because queens are really big. So as a beekeeper, you can tell when they're making new queens, because you see, instead of a little worker cell, you see a giant queen cell. Now, when does a hive do that? Why do they do that? Which ones do they pick to become queens and not? That's all a matter of, no, I mean, nobody really knows. There's a lot of theories, but, in a hive, there's only ever one queen. And the only time that a hive will raise a new queen is if either they've killed the old queen, which they do sometimes. So they'll kill the old queen and raise a new queen because they didn't like her, or if they're going to swarm. And so if they're going to swarm, the queen, before she leaves, will lay a whole bunch of eggs that will become new queens. And then before they hatch out, she leaves so that the hive only ever has one queen. So it's crazy, but it's fun. And as a beekeeper, you can use that to your advantage. So
it is pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
Alrighty, and then I have how do they go about producing a specific type of honey? So say you're getting like clover honey or orange blossom honey or something like that. How does that work?
So your hive the bees in your hive will forage on anything that's within 3 miles of that hive. Typically they go to things that are closer rather than things that are farther, but they will go to whatever. So when you buy orange blossom honey, what that means is that the bee hive that they grabbed that honey from was set in the middle of an orange field when the oranges were blooming, and that there was nothing or very little else within that 3 miles. Because then that colony has done nothing but go specifically to the orange blossoms, right? Now, having said that, I have absolutely made orange blossom honey in my hive. I don't know if I have, but I have definitely gotten honey crops that I've tasted it and I've been like, wow, this tastes like oranges. So what were they getting into? Are there orange trees growing around in Philadelphia? I don't think so, but they got into something that was related, and whatever honey they made out of that tasted like oranges. I've also had honey that tastes like cinnamon. I'm still trying to figure out what they're getting into that. But I actually have a crop right now in my kitchen that, I mean, if you taste it, you're gonna taste cinnamon, and I have no idea. It's I can't control what they get into, so that's how you do it. A little trick of the trade: if you buy honey that says wildflower honey, that was honey that was made in the spring that the beekeeper has no idea what they got into, so they call it wildflower honey. And if you buy honey that says clover honey, that was honey that was made in the summer that the beekeeper has no idea what they got into, so they're calling it clover honey. And that's because in the spring and in the summer, that's what they typically will forage on. And okay.
Alrighty, I have one more question in the chat.
Yeah.
It's what are the best local pollinator plants for a small garden?
So I am not the person to answer that question, unfortunately. But if you come out, if you reach out to our guild, we have there's a lot of beekeepers are really, really into flowers and trees and gardening and plantings. I am not. I probably should be, but I'm not. So, the answer is ask another beekeeper. The right one will know. I know that if you plant clover, if you plant wildflowers, if you plant right now, they are loving the day. There you go, bee foods. There you go. You can go and buy that stuff. There are plenty of, now what's in that bee food, I don't know, but you can read the back and figure out what it is. Yeah, that's the answer. Right now they are like, I actually, when I mowed my lawn for the first time last weekend, I left a lot of my dandelions up because the bees were all over the dandelions right now. So that's how I tell. I look at what the bees are on and the flowers, and I plant more of that. So yeah, I know everybody hates dandelions, but I like them. So
I love my dandelions.
yeah.
Love them, love them, love them. The other thing is just obviously, one of the things that we promote just for, not just necessarily for bees, but for all pollinators and birds is anything, any native flowering plants is always good. And Barbara Beck is one of our board members and it's great with all of that. So great resource. All righty. Any other questions for James? All righty, wonderful. Well, thank you so much. That was a great presentation. I love bees. They're so interesting. So many interesting things about them and their dynamics and all kinds of fun stuff. So,
Yep.
so thank you so much. Hopefully everyone will join us again next week when we are talking about climate change, or climate watch rather, with Bob McGarry. So thank you all so much. And I hope everyone has a great day. Definitely get outside. It's going to be beautiful.
Thank you, Jen. That was great.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Yes, thank you all. This was fun. So.
Thank you.